Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our next speaker, Senator Michael McDonald. Senator McDonald is the chair of the Senate Selection Committee and a dedicated member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and we are honoured that he joins us here this afternoon. Please do join me in giving a very warm welcome to Senator McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Rajavi, and my fellow friends of a free and democratic Iran. My name is Michael McDonald. I have been a member of the Canadian Senate since 2009, and it is a real pleasure to gather here today with all of you. I have always been a keen student of history, and the history of that part of the world we call Iran parallels that of civilization itself. It is one of the cradles of civilization, and we in the West have always appreciated the many accomplishments of Persian civilization over the centuries. We know that a free and democratic Iran would make the world a better place. So we are gathered here for a common but noble purpose: to support those who have made it their life's work to oppose and remove the theocratic regime that has terrorized the people of Iran, funded terrorism, and promoted instability around the globe since 1979. I was 24 years old in 1979, and now I stand here 69 years of age, yet the evil dictatorship that took over Iran 45 years ago remains in place, to the misery of those living under its jackboot, and to the detriment of those of us who want to live in a world of peaceful coexistence. The suffering of the Iranian people under the theocratic regime is tragic, with at least 120,000 people having been liquidated for their political opposition to the government. There is little freedom for anyone, but especially for women who are particularly singled out for unrelenting oppression. However, the Iranian people, and especially the Iranian women, have not surrendered to the oppression of the regime. Their resistance is strong and resilient. Indeed, it's arguably stronger today than any time since 1979. These are courageous people, and they deserve international recognition and support. Now, it is not for the democratic world to impose its political will on Iran, but it is critically important that the international community support a viable alternative to its current regime. The National Council of Resistance of Iran presents a democratic and credible alternative that the freedom-loving world can and should support. For over 43 years, the NCRI has demonstrated strong leadership and commitment to democratic principles. President-elect Rajavi's 10-point plan offers a comprehensive roadmap for a free and democratic Iran, emphasizing fundamental rights, the equality of men and women, and peaceful coexistence with a democratic, pluralist world. Thank you. Adopting this 10-point plan is essential for overcoming the destructive impact of the current regime and achieving the aspirations of the Iranian people. This program offers a pathway to a future where Iran is free, prosperous, and respectful of international norms, nurturing the potential of all its citizens. I believe that supporting the NCRI is crucial for fostering a future where Iran can emerge as a beacon of democracy and a force for peace in the region. The hope that the NCRI represents has no equal, and the democratic world must stand with them as they lead the way to rescue Iran from the autocrats and fanatics that have done so much damage to so many for so long. Recognizing the NCRI and rejecting all forms of dictatorship are vital steps in supporting the Iranian people's struggle. NCRI has received endorsements from over 200 members of the U.S. Congress, over 500 British parliamentarians, numerous Nobel laureates, over 3,600 parliamentarians globally, and 125 former world leaders. So it is gratifying for me to be here this year, now that my country, Canada, has finally declared the IRGC to be a terrorist entity. Thank you. A development. Thank you. A development, I must add, that was considered long overdue by most thoughtful Canadians. Canada's designation of the IRGC as a terrorist entity is a commendable step, something the Iranian resistance has been advocating for years. The UN, the EU, and those of our allies who haven't yet done the same should step up and do its part as well. Doing nothing is but a form of appeasement and is indefensible when one reflects on the conduct of the Iranian government. Appeasement is never a solution to tyranny, and it must be studiously avoided. The regime's increasing boldness in advancing its terrorist operations, especially in Europe, is a direct result of appeasement policies. The attempted assassination of the former Vice President of the European Parliament, orchestrated by the Iranian regime through criminal gangs, underscores this reliance on terrorism. These incidents highlight the urgent need to end appeasement. When countries release convicted terrorists in exchange for hostages, they reinforce the regime's belief that they can act with impunity. I think it is useful now to remind ourselves about President Rajavi's 10-point plan, because the principles outlined in this plan are ones that should appeal to all democratic people and societies. 1, the rejection of absolute clerical rule, affirmation of the people's sovereignty in a republic founded on universal suffrage and pluralism. 2, freedom of speech, freedom of political parties, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, including the internet. In Iran, this would mean the dissolution and disbanding of the IRGC and all other suppressive patrols and institutions in cities, villages, schools, universities, offices, and factories. 3, commitment to individual and social freedoms and rights in accordance with the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The disbandment of all agencies in charge of censorship and inquisition, and the proper pursuit of justice for massacred political prisoners, the prohibition of torture, and the abolishment of the death penalty. 4, the separation of religion and state, and freedom for all religions and all faiths. 5, complete gender equality in the realm of political, social, cultural, and economic rights, and equal participation of women in political leadership. Abolition of any form of discrimination, the right to choose one's own clothing freely, the right to freely marry and divorce, and to obtain education and employment. 6, an independent judiciary and legal system consistent with international standards based on the presumption of innocence, the right to defense counsel, the right of appeal, and the right to be tried in a public court. Full independence of judges. The abolition of the Mullah Sharia law and dissolution of Islamic revolutionary courts. 7, autonomy for and removal of double injustices against Iranian nationalities and ethnicities consistent with the National Council of Resistance of Iran's plan for the autonomy of Iranian Kurdistan. 8, justice and equal opportunities in the realms of employment and entrepreneurship for all people of Iran in a free market economy, with restoration of the rights of blue-collar workers, farmers, nurses, white-collar workers, teachers, and retirees. 9, protection and rehabilitation of the environment, which has been devastated under the rule of this government. And 10, and finally, a non-nuclear Iran that is also devoid of weapons of mass destruction. Peace, coexistence, and international and regional cooperation with its immediate neighbors and the world. An Iran that is governed under such principles would surely flourish and will become a leader for positive change in the world, a role that I believe it could truly fill as long as the Iranian people get the opportunity to experience real freedom, freedoms that have been denied to them for far too long. I trust our gathering here today is another step towards that freedom, a freedom that soon will be realized. Thank you for your time.